Hello and welcome to my last video for CSC-355. In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating some of the aspects of the game I built for the game jam. I'm not going to have time to go over and do a full playthrough of the game, but I would just like to cover a couple of aspects from it. I will give, I guess, just a brief overview. It's a puzzle slash escape game, so the player is going to be traveling through this world. There's a maze here, a parkour section here, stuff like that. They're going to pick up items and eventually they'll be able to escape. So for the programming aspect that I wanted to show off today, I'm going to be showing off the character controller movement script. There wasn't a lot of programming in this game that I built. I could definitely, if I had more time, add in more stuff, have the landscape look a little bit better, moving back and forth and just having some motion in there with some scripts and doing some other stuff like that. But I didn't really have time to do that. So I'm just going to cover the player movement script. And what you can see here, there's a lot of kind of stuff going on. It's a little bit more complicated, I guess, than what you'd expect for just being able to move and look around. But, we're controlling the gravity and the jump height and all that stuff here. I think that one of the most involved things is this ground check. So we use a Boolean to track if the player is actually on the ground. And this is what's going to allow them to, we need to have this in here so they can't jump infinitely many times. We need to make sure and check if they are on the ground or not. And in order to do this, there's a couple of different inputs here. I think the biggest thing was the ground mask. So in order to do the ground check successfully, you need to define what objects in the game constitute as the ground. So I had to add a layer, and everything that was technically the ground had to be put under the ground mask layer. And then, it basically puts a sphere at the bottom of the player object's feet. And then, if it recognizes that that sphere is touching one of the objects in the ground mask, then that's how it knows that the character is grounded or on the ground. And this helps control a lot of different things with the player movement. So again, like for instance, here we have the code for the player jumping. So it only will change the player's velocity in the Y direction if the player is grounded. If the player is not grounded, then this would evaluate to false, and the jump wouldn't basically register because the player isn't on the ground. So there's more to this script. I don't really have time to walk through every single little piece of it. But this kind of was something that I had to play around with a little bit to basically get the motion and the movement of the player to feel just right. I also had to, again, play around with like that ground mask layer. For instance, when I did the parkour section over here, I was finding that I couldn't jump, and I thought something might be wrong with the script, but it turns out that I just had to add those little objects, those little rocks that the player jumps off of, add those to the ground layer, and then it registered as being part of the mask and then allowed me to jump through the section as intended. So that was a programming aspect that I had to work around to get the game to feel nice with the movement and everything. And I'd say, I guess, for the non-programming aspect, there was a lot of different stuff. For instance, I could cover just a ton of this different stuff. For instance, the grass. I have about 200, probably more, grass objects here in the Oasis. It was very tedious to do a lot of these things to make the world look nice. But I'm not going to cover that for this section. I'll go over something a little bit more involved, I guess. I think it was probably the most challenging aspect was the buttons. So I had buttons to basically each time the player would interact with a certain object or whatever, they did so by clicking a button. and that would allow them to progress through the game. And so each time that they clicked a button, as you can see, there's a ton of different actions here associated with this button. And the same is true for, I guess, really all the buttons. For instance, it's going to be cueing a certain audio, like a sound effect once the player presses the button. The torches will come on and stuff like that. But one of the things I was struggling with is, since I have like multiple buttons here sort of under different canvases, essentially what would happen is sometimes I would click a button when I was testing the game. I'd click the button and then I'd be moving on to the next thing, and I would press the jump button and it would like trigger the next button even though I never clicked anything. And I was really struggling to figure out why the heck is it doing that. And honestly, I never did figure it out of why it was, I guess, messing up like that. But I did figure out how to fix it. So under this navigation tab, which I don't really even know what it does, normally I think by default it's set to automatic, but if you set this to none, it will sort of prevent those buttons from sort of getting mixed up and pressing inadvertently. So that was, I guess, the key that I had to do here. One of the trickiest parts of this game was getting all those buttons to perform all the actions that I need them to, and to only trigger when the player triggered them, and in order for the game to work appropriately. So I think that basically wraps up the two things that I wanted to talk about, the programming and non-programming aspects that were kind of the trickiest. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do a playthrough of the game like I said, but if you do want to play the game, I'd really appreciate if you check it out. I'll have a link in the description for that you can use to play the game and test it out for yourself. So hopefully this gives you a little bit more idea of some of the things that went in behind the scenes to making this game. Thank you for watching, and it's been real. I'll see you later.